Many years ago, in the town of Magodo, lived a young woman named Nelo. She was a successful, career-driven and focused young lady who was doing well for herself. Nelo held a high position in the firm where she worked, and she was well liked by her colleagues. But in spite of all the achievements and wealth she had, Nelo was not truly happy. She was in her early 30s and yet she had no husband, not even a serious relationship. Her siblings and friends were all married, leaving her behind as the only single person in the circle. Even though they do not taunt her or insult her directly for her status, Nelo was no longer comfortable being among them, as any discussion they raised up would always end up being linked to marriage or motherhood, and she usually felt weird each time. Nelo also dreaded going home to visit her mother, as she would always be bombarded with marital talks. The last time she visited her mother 2 months ago, the visit did not end well, as her mother was seriously on her neck to bring home a man. Nelo, when will you bring home a man? Are you not bothered about your single status? All your siblings are married with children, and you are here acting unbothered. Your younger sister told me that you don't even have time for men because of your job. Is that true? How will you get married if you don't even make out time for men? If you think I will fold my arms and allow you waste your youth, then you must be joking. Listen to me. I give you 6 months, only 6 months to bring home a man you will get married to. If not, I will go and get a man for you myself, even if he is crippled or blind. And you must marry him. Don't try me. 6 months only, Nelo's mother threatened. Nelo felt really sad about the whole situation. She felt helpless as she couldn't find a solution to her problem. It was not as if she did not want to get married, but it was just that it wasn't working for her. She had been really unlucky with men and had not met a single genuine one. She had been in a serious relationship with a man named Femi for 2 years, only to find out that he was seeing someone else the whole time. Then there was Ebuka, who seemed perfect until he vanished one day without a word. If only she had known, she would have avoided those men the moment they introduced themselves to her, because she once read a post online that said that men who answered Femi and Ebuka were usually unfaithful in their relationships, even though she never believed it then. Now she did. These experiences left Nelo broken, and in fact, she had lost all hope in marriage. She was forced to believe that marriage was not meant for her. But with her mother's threats, she needed to have a rethink and do something about it quickly. She knew her mother, and she knew that she wouldn't mind embarrassing her in public because of this issue. Nelo could not stay long with her mother and had to quickly return to her base under the guise of work emergency. But before she left, her mother didn't fail to remind her of her 6 months deadline. Nelo returned to Magodo with the burden in her heart, and as she resumed work the next Monday, it seemed as though her colleagues were looking at her, shamefully judging her for being single, because she could read through their sentimental stares. She ignored them, however, since no one dared said anything to her. But she understood the reason for their stare when her personal assistant came to her later with her wedding invitation in her hand. Nelo froze in shock as she saw her PA standing in front of her, smiling and giving her the wedding card. But she immediately got a grip of herself and smiled, congratulating and wishing her well. Nelo was reminded of her status once more, and she couldn't help the feeling of failure that enveloped her. No wonder they were all looking at me like that when I walked in. Even a little girl can get a husband without stress. Yet you, almighty Nelo, with all your wealth and achievements, cannot even keep a man for 6 months. Ah, Nelo, look at my life. Others are building happy families while I am here. What is it that I'm doing wrong? Why do all these men keep on disappointing me, even when I'm committed to them? No wonder they say the good girls do not get the good guys. But no, this is too much. I need to take my future in my hands. I need to act fast. I must get married by hook or crook, Nelo said to herself. As a way of being hopeful, Nelo brought out her phone and started to browse through different wedding gowns and suits. She needed to visualize the reality she wanted. Maybe by so doing, she would be able to attract it. She saved a lot of these pictures in her phone and would always go through it every day. One Saturday evening, Nelo was going through the pictures of the wedding gowns on her phone when an idea struck in her head. I should buy a wedding gown. Yes, I should get one and keep here with me so I can see it every day. Immediately, Nelo stood up and took her purse to go locate a bridal shop. As she drove past the busy road, Nelo noticed a young man standing by the road holding several portraits for sale. But one particular portrait caught her attention. It was that of a young, beautiful bride, dressed in white flowing wedding gown, smiling innocently. Immediately Nelo saw the portrait, she got enchanted. She quickly parked the car and walked up to this young man. Your portraits are really beautiful, especially this one. Did you draw all this yourself? She asked the young man. Yes, I did. I still have more if you would like to see them. Nelo's eyes were still fixed on the bridal portraits and she asked the young man, how much is this one? She then raised up her head to look at the man, and at that moment, a silly idea struck her. Even though it was silly, Nelo felt it could be the answer to her problem. What is your name? She asked him. I am Ashoka. Nelo then asked, what do you do apart from this? Because if I'm not mistaken, you don't make enough sales from these portraits daily. So do you have something that gives you extra money? Ashoka then explained to her, this is the only thing I do to survive. It is true that I don't make much from these portraits, but I don't have a choice for now. I'm just trying to gather money to start up something more lucrative. As Nelo heard this, she was a bit relieved. She believed Ashoka would not turn down the offer she was about to make. Would you be interested in a temporary job? She asked him. Ashoka's eyes lightened up. A job? What kind of job? Nelo then paused for a while before explaining. I need someone to pretend to be my husband for 6 months. I'll pay you well. It's just for 6 months. You don't need to worry about any commitments. It's just plainly contracts. Ashoka was taken aback. Pretend to be your husband? Are you serious? Very serious, Nelo answered him. Just see it as a way of us helping each other. You make money to start up your business, while I get to show you to my family and friends. As being my husband for this month, at the end of the contract, I'll just cook up a story and tell them that you traveled out of the country. That way, even if they don't see you again, then they won't bother me. It's a worthy offer. Would you do it? Ashoka thought for a while. He was just struggling to get by, and the money would help him set up his business. Since it was just for 6 months and it was just for show, there was nothing to lose. He then said, I'll do it, but you need to assure me that it won't exceed 6 months and I won't get into any trouble. I'm just a poor hustler trying to make ends meet. I don't have the strength for rich people wahala. Nelo was happy as she could already visualize the surprise on her family's face when she introduces Ashoka to them. Even though he looked shabby now, she just needed to get him nice clothes and get him a clean haircut. Then he would fit in the role well, as Ashoka was a tall, good-looking man naturally. Nelo told him to pack up his portraits and get into the car, and immediately she drove him to a boutique to buy him new clothes, shoes, and give him a haircut. She then took him to her house. On their way home, Nelo asked him questions about himself because even though she was desperate, she was still cautious about bringing a criminal to her house. But from everything Ashoka told her, she could deduce that he was the first son of his mother, and life had been unfair to him as he had tried so many ventures, but none seemed to have favored him. He was just all about making ends meet for his poor family at home. As soon as they got home, Nelo got him something to eat and then showed him to his room. She told him that she would prepare a backstory with which they would both practice and master before meeting with her family. The next day, Nelo came up with a document containing the made-up story and necessary information they both needed to know. Ashoka started to practice, and before the end of the day, he had memorized all the information. 2 weeks later, Nelo called her mother and informed her that she had a surprise for her and wanted to come visit her. Her mother was, however, not interested in any surprise that was not marriage related and reminded her of the 6-month deadline. Nelo smiled and knew that this surprise of hers would throw her mother off balance. It would shut everyone's mouth up, especially all those friends and colleagues who had been secretly mocking her for being unmarried. Nelo took Ashoka to see her mother, and as expected, her mother was shocked. But she was even more shocked when Nelo told her that they were married already. "Nelo, you are married. How? When?" her mother asked, still in shock. Nelo smiled and explained confidently, "I and Ashoka have been together for 1 year now, but I decided to keep our relationship a secret because I did not want to go through the shame of another failed relationship. I thought he would end up like one of those other men, but he proved me wrong when he proposed to me, and then we had a civil wedding last 2 weeks, but I was the one who persuaded him for us to hold the wedding secretly. Everything just felt so real to me at the time, but I am now settling into my reality of being married." Her mother looked at her unbelievably as she narrated her story. "Nelo, you got married without even bringing the man home to show me first. Was that how your siblings got married? Even if you were ashamed because of your failed relationships, at least when you saw that he was serious, you should have brought him home. So, who witnessed your wedding? Which family stood by you?" Nelo had already expected the series of questions, so she brought out the civil wedding pictures she had arranged and showed to her mother. "Mother, these are our wedding pictures. We just wanted it private. Please understand us." Her mother sighed and then faced Ashoka. "You are my daughter's husband. Even though I am not happy with the way you went about the wedding, I have to welcome you. Since you both agreed to get married that way, there is no problem. After all, it is the both of you that will live together. So what do you do for a living?" she asked. Ashoka told her that he worked as an artist at the Federal Museum. Her mother looked at him from head to toe and said, "Is that so?" She then served them food, and as they ate, she would throw 1 or 2 questions at Ashoka. Ashoka was really nervous deep down and just hoped that the show would come to an end soon. They had to pass the night over there, and for the first time, Nelo and Ashoka slept in the same room. They had to quickly adjust to the arrangements because they were being very careful to avoid raising any suspicion. The next morning, they prepared to leave, but before they did, Nelo's mother told them both to hurry up and have babies so that their marriage could be solidified. Nelo and Ashoka smiled and accepted. They then entered the car and left. Nelo and Ashoka settled into a comfortable routine. During the weekdays, while Nelo went out for work, Ashoka would stay at home and do the chores around the house. He would also prepare dinner before Nelo arrives. Nelo was impressed with this and was glad that she didn't hire the wrong person. During the weekends, they would both stay at home together and keep each other company, sharing stories and doing chores together. Nelo's mother was worried, however, about her daughter's rushed secret marriage, and so she called her younger daughter to go pay Nelo a visit to find out how the marriage was. Nelo's younger sister too was shocked when she heard about her sister's sudden marriage, and so she found time to go satisfy her curiosity. But when she got to Nelo's house, she was blown away by what she saw. Ashoka played his role perfectly as a loving and supportive husband. He left no trace for doubt at all, and Nelo's younger sister couldn't help but tell Nelo aside that she was really lucky to have such a husband. Nelo smiled, pleased that her plan was going on well. Nelo and Ashoka continued with their pretend marriage, and as the weeks turned into months, they learned each other's habits and bonded more, because even though Nelo was rich, she was a humble lady. And then, what started off as a business arrangement slowly evolved into a genuine friendship. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Ashoka said to Nelo, "You know, I never expected this to be so easy and normal. I mean, living with you." Nelo laughed softly. "I didn't either, but it's good, isn't it?" "It is," Ashoka agreed. He went silent for some minutes before saying again, "I know this is not part of the script, but I've grown to care about you, Nelo." Nelo swallowed hard as she felt a warmth spread through her chest. How possible is this? Ashoka cares about me? Was he not here for the money I would pay him? But then, who would not fall for me after getting closer to me? The other men who played with my emotions did not know that they lost a rare jewel. Nelo was lost in her thoughts, but jolted back to reality when Ashoka said, "I'm sorry if this was out of boundaries." But Nelo stopped him. "What do you mean by you care about me?" Ashoka cleared his throat and then went on to express his genuine feeling for her, and Nelo was blown away. She did not expect this to happen, but now that it did, she was glad. She let down the boundary she had drawn in her, and that was when she realized that she too had fallen for Ashoka. He was just everything a woman needed in a man. It was a pity that the difficulties of life put him in this condition. They both agreed to give each other a chance and make their relationship real this time. Nelo still went on to pay Ashoka his money for the contract, even though he refused to accept. She insisted on giving him, since it was for his business. Ashoka spent each day henceforth intentionally being a romantic gentleman to Nelo, and she in turn showed him how genuine her feelings were. They continued this way for months, until one evening, Nelo had just returned from work, only to meet the sitting room decorated with scented candles and flowers. She was still wondering what the occasion was when Ashoka came out holding a portrait in his hand. He handed the portrait to Nelo and said to her, "I have been working on this for a while now, and I poured all my emotions into this to make it very special for you." Nelo was emotional as she looked at the portrait. It was a painting of herself, dressed in a beautiful wedding gown, and Ashoka holding her hands as her groom. She looked up to look at Ashoka, but was shocked to see him on one knee, holding a ring in his hand. She dropped the portrait as she was beginning to shake all through by now. Ashoka then spoke up. "I know this started as a contract, but this past month I have spent with you have changed a lot of things. You are an angel any man would be lucky to have. You deserve everything good in this life, and I want to be that man who would stand by you through thick and thin in life. Please, Nelo, marry me." Nelo's heart melted, and she immediately stretched forth her hands and accepted the ring. They were both very happy with it and started to plan their real wedding. As for her family, it was simple. Nelo would just tell them that she and Ashoka decided to have a church wedding and invite everyone. She asked to meet Ashoka's family, but he told her that they would come to the wedding, so she would meet them there. Nelo agreed and did not think much of it. She was truly happy in a way like never before and was excited to start a new chapter with Ashoka. The day of the wedding soon came, and Nelo was filled with anticipation and excitement. Everything was set, and they headed to the church to bless their union. As Nelo walked down the aisle, she felt like an imposter. Never in her wildest imagination would she have thought that this day would come so soon like this. She was a real bride. Ashoka was already at the altar, standing and smiling at her. She walked up to him and the ceremony started. But just as the pastor was about to join them together, something unexpected happened. A woman stormed in, dragging two children behind her. She looked furious with her eyes blazing with anger. "Ashoka, so this is where you are," she thundered. The guests turned to see who was causing the commotion. Nelo's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the woman's face from a picture I had shown her of his sister. Could it be that his sister did not approve of their marriage? "What is going on?" Nelo asked in confusion and fear. The woman walked up to them and glared at Ashoka. "I am his wife and these are our children." The words hit Nelo like a rock. Wife? Children? The whispers among the guests grew louder at this point, filling the atmosphere with confusion and shock. Nelo stood frozen as she tried to understand the situation, but as she slowly understood the possibility of what could be the truth, she felt her heart divide into two. She turned to Ashoka and asked him squarely, "Wife and children, is this true?" Ashoka's expression was pale and filled with regrets. "Nelo, I am sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was just desperate and thought that this would be a way out." Ashoka had not even finished his explanation when his wife dragged him out of the church, shouting at him, "You thought you could just run away and marry someone else for money. You must be a joker." Apparently, Ashoka had been married but left his family at the village to come hustle in the city. When Nelo gave him the contract, he felt it was an easy way to make money. But when he came into her space and saw how lonely and desperate she was, he decided to play his own cards. He planned to marry her and then deceive her into giving him as much money as he could collect before running away. Whichever way, this was still bound to happen. Nelo could see her world crumble as she stood there motionless. Hot tears came streaming down her face. The man she loved had betrayed her, and the truth was just too painful to bear. After the chaos ended, the guests slowly left. Her family and friends did not know what to say to her, as they were too shocked by the unexpected turn of events. They all left, leaving Nelo behind with her shattered dreams. Nelo was deeply heartbroken and humiliated, and so she decided to take a leave of absence from work and go far away from the judgmental eyes of everyone. She put away her phones and traveled to a different city, hoping to find some peace and clarity. In the tranquil city of Enugu, Nelo spent her days alone and reflecting on her life. She found solace in the quiet moments, away from the noise and pressure of her old life. And she realized how irrational she had been in handling the marital pressure. She would have just shut them all off. After all, it was her life. If marriage was not working for her, she could still live her life well. One afternoon, while sitting in a restaurant, she heard a familiar voice. "Nelo, is this you?" Nelo looked up, only to see Emeka, a childhood friend of ours that she hadn't seen in years. "Emeka, what are you doing here?" Nelo exclaimed, feeling a spark of happiness for the first time in weeks. "I live here," Emeka replied. He pulled up a chair and sat with her. "What about you? What are you doing here?" Nelo couldn't be bothered about hiding her past mistakes, and so she explained the reason she had come to Enugu to Emeka, who listened without any trace of judgment. He sympathized with her and offered to keep her company whenever she needed any during her stay in Enugu. They exchanged contacts before leaving. Subsequently, Nelo and Emeka met and spent time together, catching up and remembering their childhood memories. They shared meals together, explored the city of Enugu, and talked about everything and anything. Emeka's presence was soothing, and Nelo found herself smiling again. Nelo spent 2 months in Enugu, and just before she left, Emeka took her to one of the beautiful hills in Enugu, and as they watched the orange sunsets, he turned to Nelo and said, "You know, I have always cared about you, but never really knew how to tell you back then. We grew up and went to different states, and I didn't think I would ever see you again. Seeing you in Enugu was like a miracle, and I don't want to lose sight of you again. Will you please give us a chance?" Nelo felt a rush of emotions, but this time it was different. It felt right. "Emeka, I have known you for a very long time, but we have been apart for years. Coupled with my recent failed marriage, I would like us to take things slowly. If it works out, then we will know that it was meant to be." Emeka understood her point and agreed. He did not want to pressure her, and so he agreed to take things slowly. Nelo returned to Magodo, but she still kept in touch with Emeka, and slowly they built their relationship. Even though it was a distant one, Emeka showed Nelo what genuine love and companionship could be, free from pretense and deceit. They had their long-distance relationship for 1 year, and then, one day, Emeka gave Nelo an unexpected surprise. He showed up at her doorstep with the news of his transfer to Magodo. He had been applying for it, and finally, his company decided to transfer him. Nelo was very happy about it, as it meant that their relationship would become more solid. It did not take long before Emeka proposed to Nelo, and she accepted to marry him. But this time around, she confidently took Emeka to show her mother and siblings. They all knew Emeka from way back, and so they were convinced that he was real. Their wedding was simple, but yet beautiful, attended by family and friends who could see the genuine happiness in Nelo's eyes. As Nelo walked down the aisle that morning, she felt a peace that she had never felt before. She had learned from her mistakes and found true love, and now she was ready to start a new life with Emeka. Emeka was well aware of her hurts, and so he was very much intentional in being a good and loving husband to Nelo. Thank you for watching this story. Let's talk about love today. Love is a beautiful thing, and everyone desires to experience it in its purest form. Unfortunately, not everyone gets to enjoy the privilege. However, it doesn't make one less. One thing to bear in mind is that if you have been unlucky in love, it wasn't necessarily your fault, as there are a lot of wolves parading themselves as being loving and kind, but their intentions are dark. Also remember that love cannot be forced or faked. It can come when you least expect it, in the most genuine form. So my dear besties, don't feel pressured and constrained within a time limit. Live your life to its fullest And while at it, keep an open mind. These wolves can detect when one is desperate for love, and they would prey on that person. Love can come to you at any time, and it will surely find you. Thank you for watching this story. Please share with me what you learned from this story and also what you loved about the story. Share the story out with your loved ones, give the story a thumbs up also, and subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!